So tonight I'm down at Portsmouth Hard by the historic dockyard. I've got the Warrior behind me. I've got my Nikon D70 out of the museum once more to do a low light challenge. I'm going to be walking around the Hard. I'm going to be taking some sunset shots down here behind the Warrior. I'm going to be taking some low light shots of the architecture. It's a wonderful place down here. You've got such a mixture of architecture from the maritime architecture, the old naval buildings, and then on the other side there's the new bus depot. That's going to look really great when the lights start coming on a little bit later, when the sun goes down. So we're going to see what this 20-year-old 6.1 megapixel camera can do in low light. I've already tested it in the height of the day, well, not really the height of the day, in evening under good light, but tonight I thought I'd give it a little bit more of a challenge, and we'll see what it comes out like. So why the Hard? Well, it's a really good place for photography. There's lots of architecture here, from the naval architecture like the Warrior behind me. Over in the back you can see some of the warships. Can't quite see the Victory from here, but if I go up to the other end, the Hard, I might be able to see it. But there's also old architecture with the buildings along the Hard here, like the Keppel's Head, and then there's the modern building like the bus station that's behind me. That's going to look really good later on when it lights up as the sun goes down. I get some artificial lights, so I'm really looking forward to this shoot. It's going to be a real challenge for this old camera. It's only got an ISO range of 200 to 1600, so when the lights go down, I'm going to have to put the camera on a tripod and take some long exposure shots, otherwise I'm just not going to get enough light into the camera. It's really going to test its dynamic range, and I'm expecting there's going to be quite a lot of noise in the shadows, but we'll see when we get back home. I'm cheating a little bit this evening. I haven't got the 18 to 55 kit lens on this camera. I decided to bring out my 18 to 105 VR, which came with my Nikon D70-200. This gives me a little bit more range, and I got vibration reduction on here. It just means it's going to make life a little bit easier. I don't see any reason why I should stick with the lens that came with the camera on there. I've also got my 35mm here, which I'll use. It's 1.8, so I'll probably use that when the sun goes down a little bit later. It's amazing the people you meet. Just been talking to a gentleman. He asked me about exposure, whether I was going to blow out the highlights. We got talking about whether the Warrior would be in silhouette, which I don't mind when it's in silhouette. It can look quite good, but there's so much detail and there's so much colour with the red stripe and the white stripe at the bottom of the ship. Don't really want to lose that. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to try bracketing. Now, you can bracket on this camera, so I'm going to do a 2-stop 3-image bracket, and then what we can do is I can combine those when I get home, and that will really increase the dynamic range of this camera. So let's see what we can take. So I get a proper exposure. In fact, I'm still going to go maybe 2/3 of a stop under. I don't really want to be at ISO 800. Let me just pop that down. Now I am at ISO 200. F8, 800ths of a second. There's the 3 shots. I'll combine those when I get home and we'll see how they come out. Just walking around here looking at some of the architecture. There's the corner of the bus depot there, which is quite interesting. There's the tower block and the sort of modern buildings over on my right hand side, which are good. Then next to that you've got the old buildings here, the Genesis Expo fossil shop, and oh, that's a ship. That's a hotel, boutique hotel there. So you've got quite a mixture of architecture. And then down in front of me, if I just turn you around a second, looking down onto the actual Hard, you've got all the boats and the fishing nets and bits and pieces down there. So there's lots of texture, lots of colour. It's a real test for this camera. The dynamic range is quite high for some of these images, especially because with the reflection of the sun on the water, they're all dark shadows. So I'm having to really watch what I do with the exposure on this camera. It's very easy to blow out the highlights, it's very easy to crush the shadows, and I'm not sure what I'm going to be able to recover these when I get back home, but we'll see. Don't know whether you can see there behind me, I've got the Gosport ferry coming in, so I'm going to attempt to take a picture of that as it comes in and see how the autofocus holds up with a slightly faster moving subject. It actually seems to be holding up remarkably well, but it's not moving particularly fast. And if I was tracking a speedboat or someone whizzing past on an e-scooter or something, or even the traffic going along here, might be a little bit more of a challenge. But so far, I think this is doing pretty well. Okay, didn't get a bus, didn't get a ferry, might have got a car. We'll see what that comes out like. Here's a bus. Surprisingly, at that kind of speed, I think the autofocus is holding up remarkably well. It's a moving shot, so my aim is to keep the bus sharp and then the background should be blurred behind it. It's one of those shots I try over and over again. It's not easy, and I'm not sure whether I've pulled it off. I won't know until I get home. So behind me, I've got the that's a cross-channel ferry going out with the sun behind it. That could look quite good. So I've got the Warrior and I've got the ferry. Watch my exposure. Now I've got the sun right in the frame there, but oh my God, the colours on this are really, really nice. Might be an old camera, but it's got a certain look and a certain feel, and the colour science on there is absolutely fantastic. The colours it puts out are really, really nice, especially where you can see there on the back of the camera. The colours on that are really, really nice, and they, when I get those back home and pull those out, remember that's only a raw file, it's not processed, although it is a JPEG on the back of the camera. When I get that back into Lightroom, I'm going to really be able to pull those colours out of this wonderful sunset, and it could look quite stunning. I've come down now onto the slipway, which in Portsmouth speak is actually the Hard. The whole area is called the Hard, but this is technically in Hampshire is the Hard. It's the Hampshire name for a slipway. So looking more up towards the Warrior, the sun's just behind the bowsprit there. So if I frame that up with the figurehead and the sun behind it, that's going to look stunning. The colours in that sky are absolutely incredible. Again, got to be really careful of my exposure here. So f5.6, ISO 200, 800th of a second. I'm all the way in at 105mm there. I'll take a slightly wider shot so I get more of the ship in, more of the Warrior. Trying to find a nice angle for the sun. We're starting to get some lovely purples and oranges in the sky now. It's going to be really, really nice. As the sun goes down, I'm going to swap my lens out for my 35mm f1.8 just so I can collect a little bit more light. I don't have to worry about depth of field because I'm going to be shooting so far away. I'm going to have plenty of depth of field anyway, but it's just going to mean I don't have to worry so much about the shutter speed. It's also, that lens has also got a really nice look. Primes always have a particular look, which is far better than the zoom lens in my opinion. So we'll see what happens as the sun goes down. was planning walking you through shooting into the blue hour, some nice night stuff with the lights in the bus depot, and then some pictures of the beautiful Shiphansom pub, which is an old pub which was beautifully lit up. But a technical problem with the camera meant I lost all my footage. Well, when I say a technical error, I got so excited shooting into golden hour that I forgot to take the camera out of time-lapse mode, and I ended up with an hour's worth of footage condensed into a 5-second clip, which was completely unusable. So I've decided to come back home and I'll walk you through the rest of the shoot, and we'll have a look at some of the photos that I took and ask that question: how did the Nikon D70 cope with the challenges of a low light situation? You can see the first shot I've got here, I was trying to take an image of the Gosport ferry as it came into the port, just to test what the autofocus was like. It's not a particularly fast moving subject, but as you can see, that's nice and sharp. No problems at all with that as it comes in a little bit closer. Nice sharp image. The colours are really good. I've underexposed this on purpose. The light was starting to drop and I didn't really want it to make it look like it was the middle of the day, so I was really happy with that image. So I tried a second image with the same sort of thing, taking some more moving subjects. There is this car here, not a particularly interesting image, but as you can see, the car itself was perfectly sharp. You've got a little bit of motion perhaps in the background and a little bit on the wheels there. And then the same with the bus. Few images of this. Wasn't really moving particularly fast, so it wasn't particularly challenging. But again, the bus is nice and sharp. You've got a little bit of motion blur in the background. These are shots I try quite often, where you drag the shutter and try and pan the camera with a moving object like a vehicle, a bus or a car or a cyclist or something like that, and the object is to keep the subject sharp with the motion blur in the background. Something I try quite often. I'm not sure I ever quite achieve it, but I was reasonably happy with this image here. So then down on the hard, I was taking some images, again high dynamic range, with the sun setting behind the bowsprit of the Warrior. I think that was really effective. There's not really a huge amount of noise in there. There's a little bit of grain, but I think that just gives it a kind of a filmic look, and the colours here look absolutely fantastic. Now I have edited these photos in some cases quite substantially. This one I haven't done a huge amount to. Just drop the highlights, push the blacks up a little bit, increase the shadows a little bit. Haven't really done anything much with the colours on this one. I've a look at some of these. Some of these are not quite so good. This shows some of the limitations of the camera. You can see that the sun is starting to blow out here. It's starting to blow out. You see the little red there where the highlights are blowing. I have tried pulling the highlights down, but really there's no detail in there and it's just going white or a slightly muddy grey. So it's just something that you need to be aware of with a camera of that age, that it doesn't always handle highlights as well. This one here is much better. There's less of the sunspot in the middle of the image, so the fact that that is blown out really doesn't matter too much. You've got a nice glow around there, and the noise levels in the rest of the image, they're perfectly acceptable. I'd be quite happy with that. I quite like that that slight grain you get. It's not massively noticeable. These are relatively low res files, so you're not going to be blowing them up to really large sizes. You're not really going to notice that grain. And to me, it just looks like it would if it was on a film camera. Now, this is still only shot at ISO 200, so it is the base ISO of the camera as well. The colours that you get out of this camera are absolutely fantastic. It's got a really good colour science, and the colours are warm, they're natural, they're some of the best colours you'll see out of any camera. So here's one just testing again the high dynamic range of the camera. This is a picture of Portsmouth Hard railway station. The lights are blown out there. If I pull the highlights down a little bit more, see I'm pulling them down all the way and they're still blown out. But to be honest, they're point lights. They're not really interrupting the image. I'd be quite happy with that. So here the light's really starting to set. We're into blue hour here. This is shot at quarter to 9. in the evening, so we're into blue hour. The detail is perfectly acceptable. Obviously, it's not as sharp as it would be on a higher resolution camera with a better lens, but I think that's perfectly acceptable. Noise levels, handling noise surprisingly well. Now, this is an image I tried taking. This is one of the ones that didn't work. This is an image I tried taking when I wanted to get some motion in the ferry as it went past. And what I was trying to do is to get some motion of the ferry as it went through the image when everything else was sharp. Unfortunately, with a shutter speed of only 1/6 of a second, there wasn't really enough motion there. So although this side of the image is acceptably sharp, the ferry just looks blurred. There isn't really enough motion there, so I don't really think that that worked. So this is an image that I actually took as an HDR. So if I expand the stack, so this image here is one of a series I took as an HDR, so I bracketed the image. You can see this first image in the top right, this was the underexposed image. This is the properly exposed image, and this one in the bottom right is the overexposed image for the shadows. And this is the image I finally came up with. Done quite a lot of work on this. If we go into the develop module, see highlights have been really pulled down, whites have been pulled down, shadows boosted, blacks pulled down, just to make sure it looks a little more natural. Then I've boosted the vibrance, the saturation, and all the presence sliders. And then I've split toned it as well. I like this image. I can't decide whether it is a little bit overdone still. And there's a little bit of fringing still around the masts, which I can work on. Let me know in the comments down below what you think of this image. I'll pop this up full screen so you can see it. Yeah, let me know down below what you think of this, whether you think it's overdone or whether you think it's just got a nice amount of punch. So surprisingly with this camera, I didn't really have to boost the ISO. I thought I was going to have to push it right up to 1600 to get any light into the camera, but it was handling the low light conditions surprisingly well, especially when I put the 35mm f1.8 on there. That's a great lens. It captures an awful lot of light, and even at ISO 200 I was able to capture some perfectly acceptable images. So this image here of the bus depot with the lights on, unfortunately with the taxi rank in front, you couldn't really get a good position to get the bus depot in. But this is only at ISO 200. I did have this on a tripod at this point, so I was at 1/4 of a second. This was with my 18 to 105 on, so I didn't even have the f1.8, so I was only at f3.5. And I think it's come out perfectly acceptably. I've got a nice bit of motion in the bus there. The lights are being handled quite well. I'm not sure I like the lens flare up there at the top of the image. That could be better. Then it's got really dark by this point, and I found a lovely Chinese takeaway with the neon sign, which looks really, really good. Would be better if the bin wasn't there. I suppose I could clone that out, but I didn't. It would have looked better again if there was someone stood in the doorway, but it's handled the lights of the neons perfectly well. 1/4 of a second, f5.6, ISO 200. Again, this was on a tripod. So next door to that is a co-op with a lit sign above the door. This one didn't really work. Even trying to underexpose the image, you can see that the highlights on the sign are completely blown out. If I try to pull the highlights down, there's absolutely no detail, no color there whatsoever. So really that image didn't work. I think I'd have had to underexpose this so much to get the light up here to show that the bottom of the image would have been in shadow. It would have been one that I could have got by bracketing the image, but it's not really a subject that I think I'd spend that amount of time on. With a short shutter speed of 1/3 of a second, you can see that the person walking through the frame is almost ghosted out. I'm not sure I like that. I think I'd either like them to disappear completely or be able to see a little bit more of that subject there. I tried taking a picture of the Sturgeon Moon over the train station and the back of Gunwharf Quays. I'm not sure I really nailed the focus on here. You can see the highlights are blown out. If I pull those down, there's no colour. They should really be a little bit warmer. And the moon it's not particularly sharp. It's not particularly sharp on the building on the back there, although the train in the foreground, it's all right. I'm not really happy with that. I always find it difficult taking images of the moon. I probably needed to focus stack this one, take an image focused on the moon and then one on the buildings here. I thought that the building would be far enough away that the lens would be focused infinity and I'd get the moon in, but maybe where I was only at f5.6 I still didn't have the depth of field. Probably needed to be f11, f16, maybe even f22 to get all of that in focus, and then you'd start having diffraction come in and it wouldn't be sharp. That one didn't really work. And the last couple of images was, this is the Ship Hanson pub, which is a beautiful old style pub on the Hard. You can see the lights shining there. It would be better if there was a little bit more light on the front of the building. I have pulled up the shadows somewhat, but I wanted to retain some of the character of the darkness as it was well into, well past blue hour by this point. If I pull the shadows up, then we can see that we start to get some noise in there. Even though I'm only at ISO 200 still, there is quite a lot of noise in those shadows, almost to the point where it's becoming unacceptable. And the lights were clipping, but I think that looks perfectly acceptable with the dark shadows. Quarter of a second, ISO 200, f5.6. I'm happy with that. And the car moving through the frame, which blurred out, looks quite good. If that was more in the center of the frame, it would be a little bit more balanced. So this last image here, the car's more in the center of the frame, not as much motion there, but the lights and the balance on the pub look a lot better. We could in fact warm that image up a little bit just to warm those lights up, and actual fact doing that, it brings a lot more light to the image and a light to the shadows. So I'm quite happy with that one as a final image. So what's the verdict? Can the 20-year-old Nikon D70 still handle low light? I think it's perfectly acceptable. I'm really happy with the images I took. I had great fun. The light was great. It was a wonderful sunset. But drop me a comment below. Let me know what you think of the images. Let me know what you think of the Nikon D70 and whether you've managed to use it in low light conditions. If you've liked this video, please hit the like button, hit the bell icon so you don't miss any of my upcoming videos, and please consider subscribing to the channel. It doesn't cost you anything, but it really helps my channel. It helps get it out to more people. Thank you for watching. Until the next video, I'll see you later. In case you come